Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of the Unstoppable Dad Project. This week, I'm going to talk about the fine line of being vulnerable. Where are you going to be too vulnerable and potentially appear weak? And what do you need to do in order to be capable? So, before I get into today's topic, as always, please make sure that you are subscribed on whatever podcast platform that you're listening to this on: Apple, Spotify, Google. You can find the audio version of this on all those platforms. You can also find the video version of it on YouTube and on our Facebook page. While you're there, if you are finding some value from this, please make sure that you share it around with anybody else who you think might get some value or some entertainment out of the topic or the content that I am putting out every single week. Other than last week, I took the week off last week because we had a big 8-year-old birthday party in our house. The girl where I became a dad for the first time had her birthday. So I was going to do a podcast, and I decided at the last minute that I was just not going to do it, and I was going to spend a little bit more quality time with them. One of the things with this is I kind of do it every week, unedited, off the cuff, on a topic that has come up or something that I've been pondering over for the week as it pertains to health, as it pertains to training, as it pertains to my mental health, and just my experience as a coach, as a husband, and as a father. And today's topic, this week's topic, I'm going to want to talk about vulnerability. And so a thing that I've really, really been thinking about almost as it relates to parenting, and the level of vulnerability that I should be showing when it comes to my emotions and how I'm feeling, especially when I'm feeling down, if I'm in a rut. Now, before I really dive into it, I just want to preface all of this by saying I am 100% not against sharing your emotions, sharing your feelings, or showing vulnerability. That's not the point of what I'm trying to get across today. In fact, if you've listened to this podcast for long enough, or you've listened to enough episodes, you know where I'm at with that. I have shared some of my journey and my darkest times on the podcast, which has been quite a difficult thing to do, because if you grew up in the same era as I did, it's just not something that men did. And I think that that stigma definitely has to be taken away. And I think that we need to be okay to talk to each other. But the most important thing I believe, and I'm going to reiterate this at the end of the episode, is if you are really struggling, like if you are in a very, very deep, dark place, you need to go and you need to find help. And that help for a lot of us is not going to just be talking to our mates. It's actually going to be going and getting professional psychological help, going and seeing professional counselor, going and seeing somebody who can arm you with the tools to combat what you are working towards. And everyone is going to be different with how they've dealt with it. For me, when I've dealt with dark times, like movement has always been movement, and training and putting myself through tough things has actually always been kind of the sanctuary for me, which has grounded me and recentered me and kind of brought me back to where I need to be in order to deal with things more effectively. And that's probably one of the things where, if you are going through a tough time, or you're feeling like something's insurmountable, by going and getting some help, some professional help and an objective opinion, it can sometimes give you some really simple things that you can just address first, which can then make the whole thing not seem insurmountable. And there are also other things within that where chemically it might not quite be right. So you may need pharmacological help, but the only way you can get diagnosed with that is to go and see a professional. So before again, and I know I've just harped on about this for a couple of minutes, but the point of this podcast is not about not getting help or not being vulnerable. It is more the point, and this is something that has really been, I've really been thinking about, right? And from the point of view of parenting, if you are, at what point is being vulnerable almost seen as a weakness through the eyes of your children as they get older? And what I mean by that is, what point is us being vulnerable and us sharing going to become or seen as complaining or seen as a weakness? And if we get to that point, will our children be able to come to us for help? Because for me, if I'm seeking advice from somebody, the one of the ways I'm going to take that advice on is if I see that person as capable in the field that I am taking the advice from. So if I am looking for advice around business, is the person I am taking the business advice from, do they either completely understand my circumstances that I am talking to them about, and are they able to show me that they're giving that advice based off a track record of either A, helping other people get a result, or B, getting that result themselves? And that's when it comes to as our kids get older. And I'd be really interested to hear from maybe some dads who are later on in the parenting journey. Feel free to send me a message on the socials and let me know kind of your opinion on this. But if we are constantly in this state of sharing vulnerability with our kids and with those people around us, at what point does it look like we're not actually capable of help? Because if you're looking to, if when they get older and when they get into their teenage years and something goes wrong, and we've constantly gone down this path of sharing our feelings and being vulnerable again, which is something that I think is important, but never actually showing to our children that we are capable of solving problems or getting past these things, are they actually going to feel okay coming to us and say, I have this problem? I can go to dad because I know he's going to have a solution because I've seen and I've observed him work through stuff in order to come out the other side of it? Or are they going to get to the point where I don't want to bother dad with this because he's got enough of his own shit going on and I really care about him and I don't want to burden him with what's going on? And then all of a sudden we create this situation for our children where through what we had thought and perceived as a good thing, sharing our vulnerabilities and sharing our struggles with them, they actually don't want to burden us with extra struggles because they're worried about us. They're almost in that role of being the parent to us as parents. And it's something that I've really been thinking about over the last 6 months as to like, where does that line exist? Now, I don't have the answer to it. I think that one of the biggest things for me and where I kind of feel like the middle ground is for me and for my parenting is sharing with them that I do struggle and being vulnerable and showing emotions, but most importantly, showing them how to deal with that. So, yes, I get angry at times. Yes, I might say the same thing. Yeah, sorry, not same thing, the wrong thing. I might address something in a wrong way. I might do like I'm going to do all this stuff wrong, and that's okay because that's how we learn. But here on the other side is how I've dealt with it and how I've gotten to the other side of it. Because I think if we go down the path of being completely vulnerable and like we almost get to the point where we look helpless, and maybe that's not the intention by sharing it, and I believe for a lot of dads it's not. But if at some point we don't correct and address that, then the message that sends to not just our kids but to other people is that, hey, this guy is really in a bad spot. I don't particularly want to go to him for help or burden him with my things that are going on. And even from the point of view of like friends and having conversations with other men and other friends, we want to, while we don't want to perceive this perfect life because there is too much of that put out in the world. And I think that can make, and again, it's your choice if you want to feel bad about that, but I think that can make us feel quite inferior at times, but we give this vulnerability off. And if we're not actually taking action to change that state, that vulnerable state, that way that we are feeling, it's not that we deserve to stay there at all, but we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves and go, hey, like, do I actually really want to get out of this? Or am I feeling comfortable in this sorrow? Am I feeling comfortable here? Have I found a place where, like, hey, everyone actually, I feel warm and fuzzy because everyone actually says the right things to me, but I don't actually, I don't think I want to get out of it. And as a result, the byproduct of that is as our kids get older, and I constantly talk to my kids about, hey, if you've got a problem, come and help me. I can't help you if you don't tell me what's going on. But it's got me thinking by saying those things to them. Like, if I'm constantly only sharing vulnerabilities and not sharing the capability I have to overcome those, they're probably not going to want to come to me for help because they may feel that their problems are more of a burden to me. And as a result, at some point, we have to be seen as capable, not just vulnerable. So it's a really fine line to walk as a parent, as a man, as a human being, where it's like, yes, we have to dispel this stigma where it's not okay to talk and it's not okay to share our feelings. We have to do that. But I do think that there can be a slippery slope where if we go down that path too much, and the only thing we are doing is sharing our vulnerabilities and our feelings, and we're not actually sharing our capabilities and how we've overcome those issues, that it can be from the family dynamic, we're not actually in that mode of we are capable men. And for some people, and some people I've actually had a deep conversation with around this, a lot of their negative feelings and emotions about themselves come from their inability to be capable and feel powerful in their particular position. Like, they just feel like they've been beaten down to a point where they have no more capability and no more power to actually complete the tasks that they need to, or make movements in the direction that they want to. And as a result, that's sent them down a path of feeling depressed, feeling anxious, and not feeling great about themselves. And again, back to what I spoke about at the start of this episode to finish off. Yes, we want to share. We want to be at a point where we are vulnerable. We are able to show, especially our children and especially our sons, that it is okay to talk through your feelings. It is okay to show emotion. You don't have to bottle it up and let it eat away at you inside, like, get it out. But after we've done that, and after we've dealt with it, and after we've accepted it, we've got to move forward, because we've got to get to a point where we're capable of overcoming those things. Because if we're forever trapped in that, it's going to continue to dig us into a hole that may be too hard to get out of. And one of the ways you are going to get out of that is to get help. And that may mean not actually just talking to your mates. That may mean going and getting professional help, going and getting an outside opinion on what's going on, because sometimes we can find ourselves in these echo chambers within our friends group where we're just going to get told the things that we need to be told, and not told what we actually need to do, or not told something that is actually going to make a difference and move the needle forward to get us out of that situation, or to get us out of that feeling. So that's this week's episode. It's really just a bit of musings on something that I've been really thinking about, almost overthinking about, to a point where there needs to be a level of vulnerability in what we do as men and how we present ourselves as men. Our children and our wives, our significant others, like, they need to know that we struggle with things, and they need to know when we're struggling with things. But if we get caught in that mode for too long, and we're consistently in that mode, and we're not able to get out of it, it might be time to actually go and seek some help. Because if we stay in that for a long period of time, they're not going to want to come to us when they are going through their own period, because they may not want to burden us, or they may not actually trust us to be able to help them out of that situation. Which, if you actually think about that, for me, that's actually a heartbreaking thought for me personally, is the fact that they may not actually trust me because they see me as somebody who has so much of their own stuff and hasn't been able to overcome it. How am I possibly going to help them overcome it? And that's the thing, for as men, I think deep down inside, we all want to be capable and we all want to be powerful within our own right. That doesn't mean that we're not vulnerable at times, but we can't constantly be in this vulnerable state. Otherwise, it is just going to dig you into a hole that you can't get out of. And if you feel like you're there, go and get some help, go and seek some professional help, go and talk to somebody who is an outside opinion, even though they might tell you something that might sting in the moment. If you are willing and prepared to actually listen to and take on that advice from somebody who is looking to give you direct help, then it can go a long way to flicking that switch and getting you to a better path where you feel more capable and more powerful as a husband, as a father, and just as a human being in general. So thanks again for listening. Feel free to reach out to me on socials. Let me know what you thought. As I said earlier in the episode, I'm actually quite interested to know um, how dads who are at a later stage of parenting, so like teenagers and things like that, what your thoughts on this topic are, because it's something that I've been thinking about now, and I've only really started thinking about it in the last 12, 18 months as Soph's going through a schooling journey. That it's something that plays on my mind, and where that line is and how do you deal with it. And so reach out, let me know, send me a message. Other than that, again, if you need help, if you're really in a dark spot, like, go and get some help, man. It's not that there is absolutely no shame in doing it, and it could change your and your family's life. So have a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.